Yes, it is. Welcome in. Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you, and this game did not count, but we wish it did because the Warriors won by 58 points tonight. 132-74 was the final. The Warriors finished off their preseason perfect 6-0. And what I was talking to you guys about on our Warriors live program, our pregame show here on 95.7 The Game, the Warriors, as far back as the Warriors notes go, they have, their preseason stats and notes. I could not find a single 6-0 preseason in Warriors basketball history. You found some perfect preseasons, 5-0. I found a couple of those. You found some 6-win preseasons. But they were 6-1 a time or two. As far as I could tell, the Warriors had never been 6-0. And if you were with us during Warriors Live, our pregame show, you heard me take it to the bank. Brought to you by Fremont Bank. My take it to the bank prediction was a win in a perfect 6-0 preseason. A little bit of history for the Warriors in the preseason, and that is exactly what happened. Of course, we know here in the preseason that the final score does not really matter all that much. And the final score here tonight, again, it was not close. It was not competitive. 132-74, is the final score. The Warriors were absolutely dominant all game long. And while that's good and all, you do also have to keep in mind who the Lakers were playing, or maybe more importantly, who they were not playing. No LeBron James. There was no Anthony Davis. There was no Austin Reeves. There was no Rui Hachimura. There was no D'Angelo Russell. So they're playing reserves. They're playing back end of the bench. They're playing two-way guys. They're playing a lot of guys that you're not going to hear from throughout the regular season. So with all that said, and I know the Warriors were without Steph, but with all that said, the result of this game does not really matter all that much. Of course, you'd rather win than lose. But let's not go out and pretend that the regular season Warriors are 132-74, that margin of victory better than the regular season Lakers, because there was definitely a lot of talent that was sitting on the bench all game long for the Los Angeles Lakers. But with that said, there is still plenty to be excited about. I think if you are a Golden State Warriors fan, something else we were talking about during Warriors Live earlier today was maybe the desire, the hunger from Warrior fans, from this fan base, for a big move, a big name, another star to pair alongside Stephen Curry. And the Warriors offseason took a lot of twists and turns, but ultimately nothing major happened in terms of acquisitions. Of course, there are a lot of new faces on this team, D'Anthony Melton and Buddy Hield and Slow-Mo, and you acquire Lindy Waters III from Oklahoma City. You draft Quentin Post, the 7-foot shooting big man from Boston College. A lot of new faces, as there are every year. None of those guys are, all-star caliber, legit number 2 running mates alongside Steph. They're quality players, specifically Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson, D'Anthony Melton, and Buddy Hield. But those aren't on the caliber of, say, Paul George, who was rumored to potentially be a Warrior this season, and the Warriors were very involved in potential sign-and-trade conversations with the Los Angeles Clippers. So you strike out on that, and then there was almost the 2-month-long waiting game around Lauri Markkanen. And, I know as a Warrior fan myself and as someone who feels like the Warriors are missing a shooting big man, a big that can space the floor, I felt that Lauri Markkanen was a perfect fit for this team. So spent a lot of time this offseason waiting and wondering and listening and figuring out if something was going to happen. It did not. So I get that there's a lot of, I don't know if frustration is the right word, but at least a lot of angst. There was a lot of angst this offseason for the Warriors as they tried to search for, the next running mate for Stephen Curry. Because really, when you get down to it, the biggest move the Warriors made this season was no Klay Thompson, was not re-signing Klay Thompson. That's the biggest, and that's a big move. But Warrior fans were hungry or thirsty for a big move that brought a big name here, not that shipped a big name away. Not that there's a ton of Warrior fans out there, I don't think, who were, I got to make sure I phrase this the right way. Obviously, Klay has meant so much to this organization, but in a pure basketball sense, I think there's a big chunk of the Warriors fandom, and I think the Warriors to a certain degree, felt this way as well. Otherwise, they would have, made a bigger deal about re-signing Klay. There's a decent chunk, I think, of Warrior fans out there who feel like Klay Thompson might not have been a piece that was terribly important to helping the Warriors win basketball games going forward. So not that letting Klay Thompson ultimately walk, and they ultimately turned into it was like a 6-team sign-in trade that got the Warriors some pieces in return and allowed them some roster flexibility and some monetary room to be able to do things. But again, with the names that I just mentioned, Paul George and Lauri Markkanen, there was a desire for a lot more than just replacing Klay with Buddy Hield, D'Anthony Melton, and Kyle Anderson. So, and I get all of that. But watching what the Warriors have done so far in the preseason, I know it's preseason games, and I know a game like tonight, you can throw the result out the window because the Lakers were basically resting their entire starting five. You can kind of throw this result out of the window, but still a 6-0 preseason. And you kind of saw, I think, the new age, the new look Warrior offense a little bit. This is a team that I got to check my numbers here through the preseason, and the preseason is officially over now. 6 games played in the preseason. They are shooting 42 per game. 42 three-pointers per game. That is a lot. That is a lot. And if you are trying to find a through line, like the common thread between a lot of really good basketball teams, obviously it's making three-pointers at a high clip because so much of today's NBA is about the three-point line. But the best teams, and this is, I guess, relatively straightforward in terms of logic, the best teams are the teams that shoot a lot of threes and make a lot of threes. And the Warriors are trying to be that team. And it might not make a ton of sense because, again, which we just talked about, you lost Klay Thompson. And if it weren't for a guy named Steph Curry, Klay Thompson might go down as the best three-point shooter in NBA history, certainly up there. You lose that guy. But the thought is amongst the Warriors, and it certainly feels this way amongst Steve Kerr, the Warriors have a better depth and a better group of three-point shooters now than they did last year, and that's without Klay. Buddy Hield is fitting well into, again, you'll see what the team looks like when they're playing against real defenses and teams that are actually trying to kind of game plan. You get kind of into the back-to-backs and the 3 games in 4 nights, and you're traveling. You don't have a ton of time to game plan, but there'll be times where a team has 2 nights off before they play you. You're in their building. They have a 7-game homestand, and you're game 5 of their 7-game homestand, and they have 2 days off before that game where they can kind of game plan against you and try to take some things away. And we'll see really how the Warriors offense looks and feels differently in those kind of moments, as opposed to this game where it's the last preseason game of the year and the Lakers aren't playing any of their starters essentially, and no one is really trying to limit per se schemes and that sort of thing. So we'll see how it looks when you get into those other regular season moments. But right now, it seems like a player like Buddy Hield is fitting in relatively seamlessly to this offense, moving well without the ball, finding the open spots. I mean, this guy's a natural shooter. When he gets the ball in his hands on the three-point line, around the arc, in a little bit of space, he's going to let it fly, and it's going to look good coming out of his hands. One of the better moments, I think, of the preseason so far, I forget which game it was, or maybe it was during the Warriors open practice a couple of nights ago on Wednesday evening at Chase Center, when the Warriors are, practicing as a team, but Chase Center is open to the public, and there's a lot of Warrior fans in there, and you get all the videos on social media, like of Quentin Post singing "Don't Stop Believing," and all the rookies and the newbies kind of doing that rookie hazing stuff, right, where they have to sing for the whole crowd. It's always fun, and the social media content is just great. If you missed any of it, check it out on our 95.7 The Game socials on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that. TikTok as well. I forget if it was during that or if it was during one of the earlier preseason games. So there's a moment where Steph Curry kind of pulls Buddy Hield aside, and it looks like he's giving him some pointers about three-point shooting. Like they're standing outside the arc. They're kind of imitating having a ball in their hands, getting their footwork set. And it's like Steph Curry has got to be one of the, 5 people on the face of this planet who can give Buddy Hield shooting pointers, specifically 3-point shooting pointers. Am I right? Like, Buddy Hield is one of the greatest 3-point shooters this game has ever seen, yet he's teammates with Steph Curry, so he's not even the best shooter on his team. It's kind of how I don't mean to compare Klay Thompson to Buddy Hield. It's the easy comparison now because you lose one all-time great shooter and you gain another one. Obviously, Klay Thompson has had a much, much better career, and Buddy Hield has never been the two-way player that Klay Thompson was at his peak. That's not what this is. But it is kind of how the Klay Thompson experience was, where you have an incredibly gifted shooter, but because he just happens to be teammates with Steph, he's not even the best shooter on his team. And Klay's had so many moments, obviously, where he's done many things that Steph has never done, which is amazing. But having that other really good 3-point shooter is certainly going to help the Golden State Warriors. But cool to see someone like Steph Curry. Really cool to see someone like Buddy Hield taking pointers about how to shoot, because that guy does not have to take pointers from just about anybody. Again, he's one of the better 3-point shooters that this game has ever seen. So cool to see that. He's fitting in really well. And I'm really curious how this Warriors rotation is going to look. And I think one thing to keep in mind, and we can talk about a starting lineup in a little bit. We can do that a little later here on Warriors Wrap Up. It's Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game. You can shoot us a text on the Comcast Business text line 888-957-9570. It's our first edition of Warriors Wrap Up here this season, and we'll be back on a Wednesday to kick things off for real when the regular season begins. We can talk about the starting lineup, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think there's a little bit of nervous energy around the fan base right now because, and I can sense it, and give me a text. You can give us a call as well, 888-957-9570. There's so many Warrior fans out there who are big fans of Moses Moody, and this was a topic earlier this week on our afternoon show here on 95.7 The Game, Willard and Dibs. There's so many Warrior fans out there who are smitten with Moses Moody. And I don't blame you. I mean, the guy's a solid player. He does a lot of things well. I'm not sure he's, like the best on the team at any one thing. Master of none kind of feels like a little too harsh to Moses Moody, but he does a lot of things really well. May not excel at any one individual thing, but he does a lot of things really well. However, I am not sure what his role on this team is going to be. Because if you are the Golden State Warriors and you look at this roster right now, I mean, you've got so many 2s and 3s. You got so many wings. Obviously, you got Steph Curry. And what's interesting, and this is why we got to get into the starting lineup at some point before we get out of here tonight. The Warriors, it seems like they might be willing to start Andrew Wiggins at the 2 and Jonathan Kaminga at the 3, which is interesting enough. But if you just put Wiggins and Kaminga out there as wings, you also have Steph Curry, of course, who's a starting guard, less of a wing, obviously not a wing. But you also got Buddy Hield. You've got Gary Payton. You've got Kyle Anderson. I could see Kyle Anderson playing potentially a 4 for the Golden State Warriors throughout the year. You've got, again, Moses Moody. And then you get towards some of the others that I mentioned, Gary Payton. You've got Gary Payton as well. And then you get to the others that Moses Moody will play over, like Lindy Waters III, Guy Santos. Obviously, I mean, a player like Reese Beekman, he's not going to be playing regular season minutes for the Golden State Warriors. I would not imagine. I'd be very shocked. Brandon Pajemski, I didn't mention him. D'Anthony Melton. Like, you have a lot of guys that are going to play a space on the floor very similar to Moses Moody, right? And Steve Kerr was quoted last week after one of the preseason games, and it was where Moses Moody came out and had a really, really nice game. I forget what his stat line was. Let me find it here for you. Just give me a second. Moses Moody had a really nice performance for the Warriors, and it was the win at home over the Kings. When Moses Moody scored 23 points, he was 7 of 13 from the field. He's 2 of 6 from downtown. He was awesome in that game, scored another 14 points next time out, leading the Warriors against the Pistons. Had 21 points on Tuesday in Vegas against the Lakers. So he's been scoring the ball really well. And Steve Kerr has been quoted now a couple of times post-games here in the preseason saying, Moses Moody is really making a case for having a consistent, normal rotation spot on this team. But you look at how the rotation has kind of sorted itself out through the preseason games. And again, it's just preseason. But I will note, Steve Kerr said pregame tonight that he wanted to treat tonight as somewhat of a dress rehearsal for the regular season. That plan kind of thwarted by Steph Curry's kind of surprise absence from this game tonight. He re-aggravated a right index finger sprain suffered last week. He'll be good to go for Wednesday. No need to worry about that, but did not play. It kind of obviously shakes things up. The Warriors started Melton at point guard. Interesting there that it was Melton and not someone like Brandon Pajemski or someone else. That's interesting in and of itself, but that kind of thwarted the Warriors' plans to use this as a dress rehearsal for the regular season. But Moses Moody was a DNP until the second quarter. Moses Moody did not play the whole first quarter, and he was off the bench after Gary Payton. He was off the bench, of course, after Brandon Pajemski. He was off the bench after Buddy Hield. Off the bench after Kyle Anderson. And again, this is just a preseason. Steve Kerr can use his rotations however he wants, and he could obviously use them differently in the regular season than he does in the preseason, and I'm sure he will. And this is not me saying you got to be using Moody before any of those guys. I mean, these are all quality players that we're talking about. My only point is saying that Moses Moody is going to get regular, consistent rotation minutes, I'll believe it when I see it, right? Because we haven't seen it yet through 3 years, really. Kaminga got his opportunity last year. We know Kaminga's going to get his opportunity so far this year. We haven't seen Moody get that consistent chance yet. And I really hope we do see it because I want to know what the guy is capable of. But I will not believe it until we see it. And we haven't seen it just yet. But there's no doubt he had himself a really good showing in the preseason. Wasn't his best performance so far today. But the Golden State Warriors, you still get a win. Of course, 132-74 was the final. We don't really care much about the result of this game. Moses Moody off the bench today. I mean, he was solid. He still scored those 14 points. 0 for 3 from deep, had 4 rebounds, 5 of 9 from the field. It was a little bit of a slow start, had a good second half, and a lot of this game was garbage time. Moody's had a really good preseason, and I hope it turns into regular, consistent minutes, or at the very least, we see him get consistent opportunity early in the season. Then it's just a question of whether or not he takes advantage of those minutes or not. That might be what this comes down to, because I think there was a stretch last regular season, I think it was in November and December, relatively early in the season, where Moody wasn't necessarily getting like 20 minutes every night, but he was consistently getting 12 minutes a game around there. He was getting some run. And he just struggled shooting the ball. He could not get his three-point shot to fall, and I think that kind of took away some of his minutes for the rest of the season, and he never quite earned that back, because what happened in that same moment? Pajemski kind of came out of nowhere, and then Kaminga exploded, and he had to start when Draymond Green was suspended once and then twice. And then Kaminga forced himself into the starting lineup. And then Pajemski forced himself into the starting lineup. And then you're looking at a rotation that includes Chris Paul once he got back and healthy, and he's no longer here, of course. But then you just had too many bodies, and Moody was the odd man out. And I think his shooting struggles early in the season were a factor in that. I hope that does not happen again, and I hope he gets a chance early in the season and that he plays well and that he kind of forces the Warriors' hand and it makes him a regular piece of this rotation. Let's go out to the phone lines, though, and get our thoughts from Warriors fans here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. It's Mark Randy with you here as we get going on our first edition of Warriors Wrap-Up. It's the end of the preseason. We'll be with you all 82 of the regular season, and hopefully a long postseason run here on 95.7 The Game. But our first caller on Warriors Wrap-Up of the 24-25 season is Jimmy in Bayview. Jimmy, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up with Mark Randy. How you doing, Jimmy?
Hey, Granny, thanks for taking my call. This is a huge year for Kaminga and Moody because, they're the two last of those three big draft picks that Myers had, and Wiseman is obviously gone. These were three really high draft picks that the Warriors, the three highest draft picks they've had in a long time, and they're on their final year before they have to, be issued a contract. So, this is a no excuses year for both of them. I mean, Kaminga had like half a good season and wants a super, a max deal. And, I don't know what he's smoking, but they've got to decide what to do with Moody, and arguably they make some really nice trades, and they've got even more people in front of them to fight for minutes over. So this is a no excuses year for both of them, and the Warriors have to decide what to do with them. And it's going to be interesting because I think they did really well cleaning up their finances and getting, some more athletic people. They're definitely missing a big. So it'll be interesting what happens. There's a lot of things that could happen. There's a lot of combinations they could package to make a trade. They freed up some money. They're in a good spot, but those guys are in a definite put up or shut up year. Thanks. I'll take your comments off the air.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Jimmy. I mean, you're right. It is a huge year for both Jonathan Kaminga and Moses Moody. You brought up the contract negotiations that are reportedly going on right now, and you're right that the reports are that Jonathan Kaminga is seeking at least something in the neighborhood of a max extension for a rookie going in, or coming into his fourth year on the end of his rookie deal, and he's eligible for that extension now. The reports are that they are far apart right now, and I have an idea why they're far apart, because Kaminga is probably going to tell, or already has told the Warriors, I will sign for X amount, or I will play it out and I will bet on myself this regular season. And the Warriors are not comfortable signing him to that amount of money right now. And we'll see if something changes before that deadline, or we'll see if they go into this season and they play the whole regular season with Kaminga without an extension. They hope that they could get something done perhaps next offseason. And Moses Moody is certainly not going to command as much as Kaminga. Maybe Moses Moody was willing to stay, and I heard a report that maybe he's going to settle for something closer to the mid-level exception, which would, I think, be easier for the Warriors to swallow, certainly, than giving Kaminga a max. But those two are in for big seasons, and we'll see how it all plays out. All right, time for a break here on Warriors Wrap-Up. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Kaminga and Moody. I also thought it was interesting that Jimmy brought up you got a lot of pieces you could potentially move before the trade deadline to try to bring someone in here. That is true as well. We got to talk about the starting lineup because this goes against so many things that we heard Steve Kerr talk about last year, and what the lineup the Warriors have used in recent preseason games. Not that means that's what they're going to use in the regular season, but if it is what they use in the regular season, we got questions. We got questions, and we'll break that down coming up next as well. As Warriors Wrap-Up continues, Mark Randy with you. A big win for the Warriors tonight, 132-74, but who cares about wins and losses in the regular season? Well, they are 6-0, or in the preseason. They are 6-0, though. Does that mean something? We can talk about that as well. As Warriors Wrap-Up continues, Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back. Warriors Wrap Up continues here on 95.7 The Game. Taking your calls here on Warriors Wrap Up as we're done with the preseason. How about that? The next Warriors basketball we will see? That's regular season basketball. How exciting is that? And this is an opportunity for you all, for all you big-time Warriors basketball fans, to get your thoughts out on the Golden State Warriors. I don't know if you've noticed here on 95.7 The Game, so much of what we've done here at 95.7 The Game of late has been like Niners. 49ers, it's football season. The Niners, of course, coming off of the Super Bowl loss. And if you've been listening this week, it's been all about the Kansas City Chiefs. This is your opportunity to get in on some Warrior basketball talk. And I know it's just preseason up to this point, but there's been a lot to get excited about. Maybe some other things to be a little bit concerned by. I mean, I don't know how you all felt. I was hoping to get to see Steph Curry play today, and I was a little worried when we found out that he re-aggravated or re-sprained or re-injured that right index finger injury that has been nagging him for the last week or so, especially considering when he was in Vegas ahead of the game on Tuesday. I think he was talking pregame with, Warriors reporters courtside when they were going through shoot-around or whatever it was, and he says, I can't really hurt it any further. I can't really re-injure it unless I do something crazy. He apparently aggravated it yesterday in practice, but Steve Kerr said pregame, it's not a big deal, nothing to worry about. He'll be fine. He's good to go Wednesday when the Warriors open their regular season in Portland against the Trailblazers. So that's good news for the Golden State Warriors, no doubt about that. But, it's a little... You would rather, of course, he be totally healthy. And the other area is Brandon Pajemski broke his nose in the preseason, but he's played the last couple of games, or he did not play Tuesday in Vegas, but was working out with the team on Wednesday at the open practice, and then, of course, played tonight with a mask. Got fitted for a mask. It arrived. He's all good to go there, so he should be good to go as well for Wednesday. If those are your only two injuries through a training camp and through a preseason, you're probably in pretty good shape. It could be worse. It's worse for a few other teams around the NBA, no doubt about that. I mean, Paul George had a scary moment with his knee where it kind of buckled on him in a preseason game. Nothing like that has happened for the Warriors, and knock on wood that it does not happen in practice leading up to Wednesday's game in Portland. So it could certainly be a whole lot worse. And this isn't me saying, woe is me, Steph Curry has an injured right index finger. But you want you guys to be 100% healthy going into the grind of an 82-game regular season. But yeah, if you want to get in on the Warriors talk here while you can, because I hate to break it to you, Warrior fans, there's certainly a pretty big football game coming up on Sunday, and I would imagine that's going to be the talk of the town coming up on Monday and potentially even into Tuesday. And then you get to Wednesday when the Warriors play a regular season game for the first time, then we start kind of eating away at football talk here on 95.7 The Game. And I know I, for one, am very excited about that. So give us a call. Shoot us a text, 888-957-9570. The 408 chiming into the Comcast Business text line. Dub Nation is hyped about the new look Dubs and the squad they've assembled. The 628 saying Steph Curry bouncing back and leading a playoff run. Hield will ball out this season. I'm excited to watch Buddy Hield. Again, as I said earlier, there's no doubt that he is not he's not the defender, the two-way player that Klay Thompson was at his peak. But man, he can shoot the ball. He can shoot the hell out of the basketball. And if he's able to stay healthy all season and he gets used to this Warriors offense, then he's going to be a weapon and he's going to put up a lot of threes, and the Warriors are going to have a lot of success with him shooting the basketball. So looking forward to that, no doubt, as the Warriors beat the Lakers tonight to close the preseason, 132-74 was the final score. I told you about this on Warriors Live. The Warriors, as far as I could see, never had a 6-0 preseason until this year. They had a 5-0 preseason as recently as 2021, 2022. the beginning of that 21-22 season. They won the title that year when they went 5-0 in the preseason. The last time they won 6 games in a preseason was when they went 6-1 in the 2016-17 season. They also won a title that year. How about that? So the last time the Warriors both were undefeated in a preseason and won 6 games in a preseason, they won the championship. This year, they're both those things. Undefeated, 6-0, and winners of 6 preseason games, 6-0. Maybe that's a sign of things to come for the Golden State Warriors. Who knows? If you are a superstitious basketball fan, then you might like that statistic. I certainly do. Okay, what we got to do here on Warriors Wrap-Up is we have to talk about the Warriors starting lineup. We have to, because this is interesting for the Golden State Warriors. First of all, the Warriors' previous preseason game before tonight, it was Tuesday in Las Vegas against the Lakers. The Warriors trotted out there Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kaminga, Draymond Green, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. That was the Warriors starting 5. Curry, Wiggins, Kaminga, Green, Jackson-Davis. Essentially the same thing tonight, just without Steph Curry. It was DeAnthony Melton in place of Steph Curry. So again, you have your point guard who 99.9% of the time will be Steph Curry. And then at the 2 guard was Andrew Wiggins. At the 3, Jonathan Kaminga. Draymond Green the 4, and Trayce Jackson-Davis the 5. I don't know if you guys all remember how, like, if we were to rewind, say, like 8 months, and we were in February, and that just made me think of the Super Bowl, and now I'm a little upset. And by the way, here in our studio at 95.7 The Game, take you behind the scenes. We got NFL Network on one of the TVs here, and they are currently replaying Niners Chiefs from February in preparation for the game coming up on Sunday. I just had to take you behind the scenes. But if we were to rewind 8 months to February, forget about football, and focus on the Golden State Warriors. If I were to tell you the Warriors were starting Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kaminga, Draymond Green, and Trayce Jackson-Davis, you would have called me crazy. The Warriors were so gung-ho, and I don't blame them. The way that group played, mostly as individuals, because I'm not so sure we saw that group for even a single minute on the court together last year. I'd have to go back and dive into the numbers. If it was not often. We didn't see a lot of Kaminga and Wiggins together, at least in the first half of the season. We saw more of it as the season went along, because I think the Warriors figured out that length and athleticism and that speed. It was a good thing. But Wiggins was in and out of the rotation, and Kaminga, of course, was starting a lot because Draymond Green was out. There were so many moving pieces last year. It was kind of difficult to find any kind of consistency or rhythm or momentum, and that was obviously a problem. But what the Warriors ran into, the problem they ran into at times last year was some of it was hard to not play Trayce Jackson-Davis. You can't not play Draymond Green. You needed Jonathan Kaminga in there because he was playing so well in those moments when Draymond Green wasn't in. But you get all of those players on the floor together, and that's non-shooter and non-shooter and non-shooter. And then you had, a relative down year from Klay Thompson. Not that he was bad by any stretch, but for his standards, it was a little bit of a down year. So you get all that together, and suddenly you're asking Steph Curry to try to find his way and average nearly 30 points a game when he's the only respected shooter on the court. And that's difficult. That's not an easy thing for even Steph Curry to do, the greatest shooter to ever roam this earth. So that's why this lineup would have absolutely shocked me last year. Like, okay, Jonathan Kaminga last season shot 32% from downtown. Career low. 21-22 when he was a rookie, only played like 17 minutes a game, only started 12 games, played in 70, but only started 12. He shot 33.6%. His second year, 2 years ago now, 22-23, he shot 37% from downtown. Last year, 32% from downtown. Not a good number. I mean, it's not absolutely terrible, but if he's your starting 3 like he has been here in the preseason, you certainly want more than that. What about Andrew Wiggins? Andrew Wiggins last year, he shot a worse, his worst mark from deep as a Golden State Warrior. He shot 35.6% from downtown. A year prior, he was nearly 40%. The year prior, nearly 40%. That's when the Warriors won the championship. Year before that, 38%. I guess he did have the final couple of games in the 1920 season when he was traded midseason, or when he was acquired. Yeah, he played 12 games for the Warriors that year when he was acquired midseason from the T-Wolves, and that was the COVID-shortened year as well, where Steph was out and Clay was already out and Draymond was in and out. Only 12 games with the Warriors. He shot 34% from deep there, so that's technically the worst he shot from three as a Warrior in a season, but that was a 12-game spell with the Warriors when Steph Curry wasn't playing and Klay Thompson wasn't playing, and the Warriors were a shell of what they normally are. So last year was Andrew Wiggins' worst three-point shooting year as a Golden State Warrior. I say all this, and who cares about the stats? I'm boring you with the statistics. I say all that lineup, one, probably would not have worked, and the lineup I'm referring to is Steph Curry, Jonathan Kaminga at the 2, then Wiggins, then Draymond, then Trayce Jackson-Davis, because at the very least, last year, 4 of those 5, not plus shooters from deep. And in today's NBA, you gotta have multiple good scorers on the floor, good shooters, good three-point shooters on the floor. And last year, the Warriors would not have had that with those guys out there. But you look at the preseason so far this year, and for Wiggins, it's not the best gauge because he only now played in 2 preseason games. Tuesday against the Lakers when he was 0 for 3 from downtown, and then tonight against the Lakers 2 of 6 from downtown, so 2 of 9, but it's 2 games. He's played 43 minutes in the preseason. Who really cares? You look at Jonathan Kaminga. In his preseason, he's played in all 6 games here in the preseason. Tonight, he was 1 for 4 from downtown, 0 for 3 on Tuesday, but 3 for 5 against Detroit, 3 for 4 against Sacramento. Game before, also against Sacramento, 4 for 7. He's had a nice stretch shooting the ball from downtown. His shot looks a little smoother than it was last year. That's going to be huge. And I think that's really the only way that lineup can survive, because with Steph and Kaminga and Wiggins and Draymond and Trayce Jackson-Davis, I mean, honestly, if all of those players shoot how they shot last year, Draymond Green is the second best three-point shooter in that lineup. And if Draymond Green is the second best three-point shooter on that lineup, I hate to break it to you, it's not going to work offensively. So if that is a group that the Warriors turn to in the regular season, they must have a lot of evidence in practices, throughout training camp, through things that we can see that this really small sample of Kaminga's shooting, it's for real. Because if it's not, that lineup I don't think is going to work offensively for the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors were so hesitant to play, and I guess I had been saying Kaminga at the 2. It's Wiggins technically at the 2 and Kaminga at the 3. The Warriors had been so hesitant, one, to play Kaminga and Wiggins together at all on the floor. They'd also been incredibly hesitant to play Kaminga at the 3 ever. He almost exclusively was a 4 last year, alongside Draymond Green at the 5, or when Draymond was out, Trayce Jackson-Davis at the 5, or Kevon Looney at the 5. Kaminga, basically all last year, in his breakout year, was a small ball 4. And he did a really good job in that role. But if you're going to slide him down to a 3, and you're going to play both Draymond and Trayce Jackson-Davis, and Trayce Jackson-Davis, by the way, tonight was awesome. But if you're going to do that, and Kaminga is your 3, you're going to need better three-point shooting from him this year. And if you get it, then that can work. But if you don't get it, then I'm not so sure how long this experiment is going to last for the Golden State Warriors. So that is something that I'm going to be watching very, very closely as this regular season gets underway and as it begins for the Golden State Warriors. Because if you cannot get that going, if you cannot get that shooting from your 2 and your 3 spot, then you're going to have to make some other changes. There's a part of me that thinks maybe DeAnthony Melton would look good as a 2 alongside Steph. Maybe you think it's Buddy Hield as the 2 alongside Steph. That seems to be the 1-for-1 swap with Clay, like most logically, and that makes sense. But are you going to hurt defensively that way? And who are you starting at the 3? Is it still going to be Kaminga, or are you going to move Kaminga back to the bench and is it going to be Wiggins? Do you dare try to bring Wiggins off the bench, start Kaminga at the 3, Draymond at the 4, Trace at the 5, and Melton or Moody potentially, or Heald, or Pajemski at the 2? And maybe I'm just talking myself in circles here because it might matter more about who closes versus who finishes. But really, I know I'm talking about the starting lineup the Warriors have used. There's a reason they're trying that lineup. They're trying combinations, and they're seeing if 3-man, 4-man, 5-man groups can work. And really, when I'm talking about this, I mean it more in a sense of groupings that play at any time in the game. Can this 5-man unit work at any moment? Not as big of a deal like if they start versus if they are in for a 5-minute stretch in the third quarter. Like, can it work at any point? And I think in order for it to work, it has to be better shooting from Kaminga and Wiggins. So that's something to circle big time early on in this season. Okay, let's go back out to the phone lines here. 888-957-9570. Mark Randy with you as we continue on Warriors wrap-up. The Warriors win tonight against the Lakers. Final score, 132-74. A dominant win for the Warriors over the Lakers, and they finished the preseason at 6-0. Up next here on Warriors Wrap-Up, it is Pete in San Ramon. Pete, what's up? Welcome back. Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
Randy, good evening. Thanks for taking my call. One more stat that I think is really important is making me really happy through these first 6 preseason games is free throw percentage. It's a hair under 84%. That's going to win some games. I mean, the assists and the overall percentages and the 3 balls are good, but geez, 84% free throws, that's a good thing. And that's all I got.
Yeah, Pete. I mean, you're going to have to hit your free throws as well. That's something that, I mean, it kind of goes without saying. I'm glad you brought it up. Like, that's something where, I mean, you're either going to hit them or you're not going to hit them, and it's going to be a big reason why you win or lose basketball games. One thing about the Warriors is they generally aren't the, I don't know, they generally aren't the, they're not a basketball team that's going to win you many basketball games purely by getting to the free throw line. You know what I mean? Like, there are other teams where free throw percentage matters more. Not that free throw percentage doesn't matter to the Warriors. Obviously, if you shoot as a team like 80% from the field, you will be or 80% from the free throw line, you will be ecstatic. But like, okay, take for example the Warriors' opponent tonight, the Los Angeles Lakers. This was a big story down the stretch of the regular season last year, especially when the Lakers were fighting for playoff positioning, much like the Warriors were. The Lakers, I think, not only attempted the most free throws in the NBA last year, but I think they also had the largest differential in terms of free throws they attempted and free throws they allowed their opponents attempted against them. And there was a lot of talk of referees supporting the Lakers, giving them a kind whistle, whatever. That really doesn't matter that much to me. When you have a team like that, where that is the trend, right, where you shoot a lot of free throws, you better be a good free throw shooting team and take advantage of that. The Warriors, there will be nights where they miss, they go, I don't know what the number would be. They go 8 of 18 from the free throw line, and it is anxiety inducing, and they make you want to rip your hair out, right? But there's going to be few games where that is the reason the Warriors lost, because they simply don't get to the free throw line enough to generally make it that big of a deal. And I think, Pete, you bring up a good point, because it leads exactly into what I'm talking about. You got to get better shooting from your others. And if you're going to start Kaminga and Wiggins together, along with Draymond and Trace Jackson Davis, someone in that group, or a couple of someones in that group, have to shoot better from deep. And the obvious ones are Jonathan Kaminga and Andrew Wiggins, because they both had down years shooting the basketball, especially for Kaminga. He's a guy who still has it in him. He's young enough and has a malleable skill set enough to where that's something that he can still get a lot better at. And you expect it to happen. And if it does happen, look out, because he's going to be an entirely different basketball player. For Wiggins, he has a large enough sample where you say last year was just a down year. And if he gets back up to where he has been throughout his career, closer to 38%, then you're going to be looking at a basketball team that feels a little bit different as well. Again, in his full years as a Warrior, ignoring the first year where he played just 12 games, Andrew Wiggins' shooting percentage from deep, 38%, 39.3%, 39.6%, and then last year, 35.8%. I mean, it's a drop-off. It's not a gigantic drop-off, but it is a drop-off. And if he gets back up 38, 39, hell, maybe he even has the career year and shoots 40%. This Warriors offense will look different and will be a lot easier than it felt at times throughout last year. Okay, a few minutes to go here on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Before we do get on out of here, we do have to take care of a little bit of business, and that is Crashing the Boards. Crashing the Boards, of course, is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Crashing the Boards tonight, not a lot to choose from because so many Warriors played minutes in this one. You know what? Should I pick a Laker for Crashing the Boards? I can't possibly do that. The highest rebounder in this game was a couple of Lakers, by the way. Jackson Hayes had 7. Quincy Oliveri also had 7 rebounds, leading the way for the Golden State Warriors. Let's see, how many players had 4 rebounds for the Warriors in this one? 1, 2, 3, 4. Jonathan Kaminga, Draymond Green, Brandon Pajemski, and Moses Moody, all with 4 rebounds for the Warriors tonight. So we'll give the 4 of them our Crashing the Boards honor tonight. Again, Crashing the Boards is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Okay, and that'll just about do it for us here on Warriors Wrap-Up tonight. The Dubs victorious, final score 132-74. The Warriors get it done, and again, for the first time, as far as I can tell, in their franchise's history, the Warriors, a 6-0 preseason. The last time they were perfect in a preseason, they were 5-0 when they won the title back in the beginning of the 21-22 season. The last time they won 6 games in a preseason was 2016-2017 when they went 6-1. So maybe a good sign for the Golden State Warriors at this point, as they are 6-0, a perfect preseason, and now they make way for the Portland Trail Blazers. They'll travel up to Portland to the Rose City, to Rip City, and they'll take on Portland on Wednesday. We got you covered, of course, here on 95.7 The Game. The tip time for that game, I believe it will be a 7 o'clock tip. Yes, it will, which means pregame coverage begins at 6 right here on 95.7 The Game. I'll have you covered on Warriors Wrap-Up. Warriors Live and Warriors Wrap-Up beginning at 6 on Wednesday. Tim Roy will take over live from Portland at 6:30, and then whenever they're done, I'll take over here on Warriors Wrap-Up once again on Wednesday, October 23rd, as we get ready to usher in another year of Warriors basketball here on 95.7 The Game. Okay, that'll do it for us tonight. For my guy Cam Williams behind the glass, my name is Mark Graney signing off. Thanks so much for tuning in. Next time, we do it for real. The 2024-2025 Warriors season is just 5 days away. Until then, thanks so much for tuning in, and have a good night.